The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Today is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022, the first day of Black History. And we begin, as always, with our Moments in Black History. We'll be joined later on by Dr. Carl Mack as we explore what happened today in Black history. And then we'll be speaking momentarily with a good friend of mine, Brother Terrell Starr, as we begin to turn our focus onto what is happening in Ukraine. We're going to be taking this from a holistic perspective because, well, what matters in this moment is that the truth is able to cut through all of the rhetoric. And more importantly, that we find a way to not have conflict above all else. So we'll discuss that. And of course, Georgia Ford is going to be joining us for On the Clock and giving us an update on all the federal charges, all the cases that are happening, police officers shooting and killing Black men across the country. We have a very, very busy day this morning, turning our eyes very briefly to some of the things that we're facing. I think it's important for us to be able to dovetail our conversations back to why it's important for everyone to be able to see what's happening on a global stage as clearly as we see what's happening on a local stage. A lot of times in the Black community and in honestly, just in progressive communities in general, I've seen this. We get so focused on what's happening right in front of us, which we should be. But if we don't see how the global factors impact us on a day-to-day basis, then we may not understand how it is that those big tanks got in our neighborhoods, how it is that these cities are able to get military-grade equipment whenever it's time for us to protest on behalf of Black lives. Why is it that these small cities have weapons that have been used in Afghanistan? That's because, well, we have to understand what's happening on the international stage. If we don't have that knowledge, then we're not prepared. And I want us to expand that conversation. I want to bring into the conversation this morning my brother, Terrell Starr. He is a international affairs correspondent. He is currently in Kiev, Ukraine. He is an expert and well-connected brother on the international stage and also a friend of mine. Good morning to you, Brother Terrell. How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself? I'm really happy that you're inviting me on your show to talk about this. Hello, Dr. Mack. I've seen you everywhere from my HBCU days, and just happy to say hello to you, just virtually, in person at least.
Brother Starr, thank you so much, and good morning to you. And although we're a month into it, Happy New Year, my brother, and thank you so much for your body of work as well.
Thank you.
You know, I want to do something a little differently here, Brother Mack. If Google is nearby, while we are going to internationalize the conversation and we're going to get to Ukraine momentarily, Brother Terrell is going to hang out with us a little bit. I want to start with Black history, this being the first day of Black history in this country. But for us, every day is a moment of Black history. Hey, Google, what happened today in Black history?
On February 1st, 1902, in Joplin, Missouri, writer and leading light of the Harlem...
Stop.
Actually, Brother Mack, we were... Yes, sir. Go ahead.
If we're going to go that route, here we go. Hey, Google, what happened on this day in Black history?
On February 1st, 1902, in Joplin, Missouri, writer and leading light of the Harlem Renaissance Langston Hughes was born. The great-nephew of John Mercer Langston, Hughes is regarded by many as one of the most prolific and talented American writers of the 20th century. As a poet, some of his most notable works include Shakespeare in Harlem, 1942, and Selected Poems, 1959. Also an accomplished playwright, Hughes' play Mulatto was produced on Broadway in the 1930s. His play Black Nativity remains a holiday season favorite in the Black community. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Carl Mack.
Brother Mack and Brother Starr, I appreciate this opportunity, right? Because I see the connecting threads, but I want to yield the floor. Brother Mack, just tell us about this Langston Hughes. And I'm honestly curious, if you know, because how did Langston Hughes' life, where did he end his life? If anyone knows, and I can Google it if not. But I wanted to share that this morning, Dr. Mack.
Basically, when we think about Langston Hughes, I don't know that I could add very much more to what we learned there. One of the interesting things that I did discover during this research on him is I had no idea that Langston Hughes had written Black Nativity. I had heard about Black Nativity every year during the holiday season, never knew it. But the other interesting thing that I did not know was that he was the great nephew of John Mercer Langston. And we know John Mercer Langston from a DC perspective because John Mercer Langston started the first Black law school in this country, which was at Howard University. And John Mercer Langston is the namesake of Langston University. So just some very interesting aspects of this man that we know as Langston Hughes and his lineage as well.
Brother Terrell, I know a lot of our scholars and our artists and some of our greatest leaders in the past have oftentimes found themselves outside of the United States for a good period of time. And when they come back to the United States, it's always a shock to see the country that they defended in some cases, or that they wrote about, or they sang about, not giving them the same respect that they got abroad. I'm curious, as a brother in Kiev, what is your experience simply as a Black man, and how is that tying into your life from a historical perspective?
Thank you. I just want to add another tidbit of a factoid with Langston Hughes. He actually spent a year in the former Soviet Union in the early 1930s. He also was supposed to lead a project called Black and White, which was a Soviet, what you call a so-called propaganda film that was aimed at challenging and exploiting the racism of the United States. And so Langston went to the former Soviet Union because, quite frankly, he couldn't find work in the United States as a writer. And so it was the Soviet Union that was going to give him that first opportunity. But what happened in the early 1930s, and I don't want to say the wrong year, but I think it was 1933 when the United States when the United States gave the Soviet Union diplomatic recognition. And so a part of that deal was that they had to stop. The United States said you cannot produce propaganda towards the United States, and that included Black and White. There's a lot more history to that, but Langston Hughes stayed in the Soviet Union for a year. He also traveled to Central Asia, where he noticed how Central Asians were discriminated against in Jim Crow fashion in all various forms of their lives, similar to Black people. So he drew those parallels in his in the first part of his memoir, I Wonder As I Wander. And 1/3 of that memoir is devoted to his time in the USSR.
Wow. That's something.
Now, if you want to ask that question. Yeah.
No. That was the question that was a question that I didn't know I needed the answer to. Right. I was just crying there. I knew in there that there was something that was really pertinent to our conversation today, because from a lot of perspectives, I've been doing politics for a long time. As we get ready to embark on this conversation about Ukraine, I'm fully aware, and Brother Terrell, I know you're, neck deep in it. You're in Kiev, so you're aware of all the geopolitical factors, and you are aware of all the geopolitical factors as it pertains to the United States of America. How it is, the politics here in the United States, how it pans out, and how it's being used to control the narrative in one way or the other as it pertains to Ukraine. Now, I said a whole lot, but I want to come all the way down to the very basics now and help our audience understand why someone in Atlanta or someone in Ferguson should even care about what's happening in Ukraine.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent question. I'm often asked why Black people ought to care. Listen, I claim New York now. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, the blackest city in the United States by population, right? And so, like Dr. Mack, I went to a historically Black college where I got my first opportunities to travel abroad at an HBCU. So listen, I'm a Black person who grew up in Blackness, who was educated in Blackness. At the same time, Blackness to me and having a global mind, those two don't run in conflict with one another. Right. As it pertains to our own safety and security at home, because they both go together. So let me explain the politics. So why should they care? One, I'm going to give you a sneak peek to my podcast episode that's dropping this Friday that I had with former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul. Putin thinks very much in ethnic terms, right? And so in America, we look at Ukrainians, we look at Russians, we look at these Estonians and think, oh, okay, these are all just white people going at each other. But in reality, that's kind of reductive and it's just false. For one, we would never say that all Black people on the continent of Africa are alike, right? And so, they're a continent of, dozens of countries and listen, hundreds, even cases, thousands of ethnicities and languages. And so why is it important is that the way that Putin is operating in Ukraine, he is trying to reestablish the cellular colonial influence of the USSR, right? Because Russia is a cellular colonial state. Like the United States, now jump into that in a minute. Russia and the United States are both cellular colonial nations. Now, why should we care about Russia's cellular colonialism while we're dealing with our own cellular colonialism? It's very simple, right? So what's happening here right now is that with Ukraine, there are more than 100,000 Russian troops at the border. So I'm in Kiev right now. It's very quiet. I'm looking out my window. Everything is normal. If you didn't know that there was a conflict here, you wouldn't know it if you didn't if you didn't watch the news. But this is an unprovoked attack. And what Putin genuinely believes is that his regaining the power of the former USSR is not going to happen because Ukrainians are a part of his Slavic Union. So he thinks very much in ethnic terms, and he feels like if these people, the Belarusians, the Ukrainians, and the Russians are not reunited, then that will be a failure on his part. Now, going back to what McFall told me last night during our conversation, he said during a meeting, because he's had a number of meetings with Putin, he said that Putin was looking at him and Biden and some other, the top foreign policy people during Obama's era. Putin said, you know what? And he looked at his skin. He did his skin Putin took his finger and he ran his finger across his face. He said, you know what's wrong with you Americans? You all think that we think like you. You all think that we are the same. And what Putin was saying is that we're Slav. We're not white. And so So the thing about Ukraine, why it's important, is that they treat, first of all, Ukrainians like second-class citizens, and it's all written and inculcated in the way that he speaks about this nation, little brother, and it's like something that steps the Ukrainian down to a second throttle. And so the question is, as a world power in the United States and as citizens, how much of this type of behavior from the Kremlin do we want to, how best do we stop that diplomatically? Because if he has this ethnic outlook, because this whole thing is we're going to predicate an unprovoked attack against Ukraine. How does that mean that they can't spread beyond Ukraine? And maybe not militarily, but through cyber warfare or et cetera. So it could very much hit the United States because the context of how Putin is attacking Ukraine could also impact us in the United States.
Brother Mac.
And Brother Starr, just a few corrections is, although my heart and soul is HBCU, I actually graduated from PWI, Mississippi State University. But,
I'm sorry, I got you.
No, not a problem. I was raised in Jackson, so Jackson State was my first choice, but it just didn't have an engineering program, so I went there. But nonetheless, back to your point of not only from those aspects of why should Black folks be concerned, but the question I would ask you is, and this to me is the most important question or at least one of the important questions in addressing how is this going to affect everyday average Black folks. What would happen if Russia were to invade Ukraine based on the ideas that NATO has set forth, the Biden administration? So what would happen if Russia actually invaded Ukraine? And when I ask that question, I'm saying from an ally standpoint, everybody chooses sides. It's clear to me that China is going to side with Russia. I would think that, it's clear to me Germany would side with Russia. I believe China would side with Russia. And if you think about China, from a population of 1.7 billion, having one of the greatest militaries in the world, technologically speaking, now everybody starts divvying up. England comes here, France comes here, sides with the U.S., but basically, could we be looking at World War III? And if something like this happens, and you have this major geopolitical world event taking place, from a standpoint of how would this affect Black folks, trust and believe Wall Street would crash. And Wall Street's going to crash because Wall Street is based on profits. And if companies can no longer do business, there are going to be layoffs. And we all know from a historical perspective, blacks have been the last hired and the first fired. So
That's
trust
right.
and believe. If Russia were to invade Ukraine, is it plausible that this scenario that I'm laying out to you, is that possible about who would side with Russia and what could be the possible worldwide implications of it?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Mack. Well, first going off for your point, yes, China and Russia are geopolitical allies, but they have a very complex relationship because over the years, because of Russia's unstable economy, they've had to get a lot of their loans from Beijing because a lot of the Western banks stopped lending Russia and some of the key oligarchs money, right? So that's from a financial standpoint, you're correct, but the relationship is kind of sometimes it's cat and mouse. Sometimes, they're definitely in solidarity on the United Nations Security Council, right? Because they have the same issues or problems with human rights, et cetera, right? But that's another story. We can get into it if you ask me. Now, as far as how black people were impacted, gas prices are going to go up. And so, and that's something that energy analysts have predicted that certainly would happen if there was an attack. One thing you have to keep in mind, too, is that there's a project here that's called Nord Stream 2 that sends about roughly half of Europe and Germany's gas from Russia. And it's, as opposed to it coming from Ukraine, it's going to go through, it's going to go, through the, under the, south of the Baltics and going straight into Germany. Now, in regards to your question about NATO, Ukraine is not a member of NATO, and so they would not trigger Article 5, which is if you attack one of us, you attack all of us. There has been no official statements of America or NATO countries sending troops to fight for Ukraine. In fact, they would not do that. So we don't have to worry about the troops happening. So what you're seeing with these deployment of soldiers is that because of those soldiers are going to NATO-aligned countries. And so because of the borders here, right next to Ukraine is Poland to the west. And so because of that, that's just normal military procedure of making sure that your borders are secure in case any major conflict goes beyond Ukraine. So these deployments are not meant to suggest that American troops are going to fight. That's something that's not true. Now, a conversation that I've heard amongst progressive circles, and I saw the Progressive Caucus release a statement that was signed by Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and there is another Congresswoman from Washington, and her name evades me right now. So I think the questions about why we should care is, does America, as far as a progressive stance, do you have a moral responsibility to provide arms to a country that aspires to be a part of the EU, that aspires to be geopolitically aligned with you, arms to protect itself? That's the question. And so some people would say that those that the offering of lethal weapons would escalate the situation. Well, the reality is that the Russians have been here for 8 years, right? So Russia colonized Crimea, Luhansk, and the Donbass regions. And so the escalation has already taken place. And so I think the real question is, how should America, if you're thinking about it from a progressive standpoint, how should you morally respond without troops? And sanctions are a part of that, but I can go more into that if you ask me. I just want to stop there.
But Brother Starr, what my question is, what would the U.S. do if Russia, because as you stated, they have 100,000 troops sitting there. They're beginning to bring in the infrastructure that suggests strongly that there is going to be, quote unquote, an invasion. So if Russia were to go into Ukraine, what would be the U.S.'s response? Would it be with force? Would it be purely diplomatic? And if we responded with force, trust and believe, I am of the mindset that then sides are going to be taken. And so that's my question. What would the U.S. respond if Russia went into Ukraine?
Sanctions. Thank you very much. Sanctions. And so America has made it clear to Ukraine that there would be no troop involvement. So that's not going to happen. What would happen is that NATO would supply lethal weapons so that Ukraine would defend itself. And so one of the main weapons that you probably see on television are these shoulder-propelled devices. And basically what those are javelins. And so those are armor-piercing weapons. And so and that's a major issue, that basically what you would use to fight. It's basically an anti-tank weapon. And so the position from the United States is that, and they're very deadly. I mean, if all you have to do is Google javelins on javelins on YouTube, and what you will see is that they're very mobile, and then you can just shoot at a tank, blow it up, and then you can seek shelter. So it's a very efficient tactical weapon. And listen, the Russians don't want to see that. And so that's the question. They would provide arms, not necessarily fight. Now, going back to the sanctions, there are two ways that the sanctions would be deployed. One of the main things is that they would, America is thinking about sanctions towards Putin's inner circle, and they're roughly, Navalny had a list of roughly 30 plus people that he encouraged to be sanctioned. And the idea is, if these people's properties, if their banks, if their real estate interests were seized, then that would, after a while, because sanctions take a while to hit, because Russia is functioning as an autocratic kleptocracy, it would take a few years, and they would suppose to pressure Putin and say, hey, maybe going into Ukraine is a bad idea. The other option is sanctioning banks, larger banks. Here's the problem with sanctioning large banking systems. If Russians cannot conduct business in U.S. dollars, then that's going to hurt the average Russian. And so what the administration is working through right now, and I talked to Ambassador McFaul and a few others about this, is thinking of a surgical way to apply sanctions so that they don't impact the Russian people. And them looking at this and Putin using this as an opportunity to say, hey, we're under siege, and the West not only wants me to suffer, they want you to suffer as well.
It helps them win the messaging campaign. It enhances it. And then I would also think if they can't conduct business in U.S. dollars, then they would find another currency, one of their regional partners, perhaps. Brother Terrell, I want to reduce some of these variables down to some more simple questions, because we could get lost in all the particular details. But I think you already hit on the crux of my dilemma, because when you said send weapons, I'm not going to lie, I think that everybody in the audience saw my eyes. I was like, send weapons? My first instinct is absolutely the hell not. I've never seen an instance when the United States gets involved in sending weapons where it actually turns out good. However, the Ukrainian revolution, I'm thinking of the Orange Revolution. I'm thinking of the people on the ground there. I'm thinking about those real lives, those real people who want democracy, who these are real human beings who are now looking at Putin being the aggressor, rather, and they have the right to defend themselves, whether or not the United States gets involved, which I generally always say, no, stay out of this, America. Then what of the Ukrainian people? And what you're saying is that the United Nations is considering giving them weapons so they can defend themselves, or NATO, rather. Who did you say? Because it's a big difference.
It's NATO. So basically,
how does Russia not see that as a provocation in the first place? I mean, NATO being the giver of weapons, that's a provocation in itself, isn't it?
But gentlemen, but see, my problem is this. We're talking about a mighty, mighty military force. So even if these these armor-piercing weapons are sent out, Russia has an air military force that could literally wipe out whatever they're going to put in. So I just want to be clear, Brother Starr, are you of the mindset that if Russia, as they did during the Obama administration, they went into Crimea, and I'm not, I think all we did was just talked about it. The Obama administration talked about it. I don't think that we did anything. And so what it is clear, what my thoughts is, Putin don't care about the talk. Putin is trying to reassemble the former Soviet Union. So if he invades Ukraine, are you of the mindset that that America will not, under any circumstances, send in military force to propel him back out of Ukraine?
As long as the Russia offensive does not threaten tactically NATO-based assets, then the answer is no. So let me break that down because it's a little complicated. Now, one, going back to Obama, Obama actually did levy the toughest sanctions against Russia and Russian entities since the fall of the Soviet Union. And so those sanctions have caused Russia's economy to GDP, to contract by as much as 3%, right, over the years. And so those sanctions have hurt. And another thing that we are not aware of at all, but I'm going to draw your audience's attention to, is that Russia is reasserting itself in the Arctic. And you know, the Arctic, because of thawing ice and permafrost, it's climate change is warming there at three times the rate that it has 3 degrees more than it is in the rest of the world. And so Russia is taking advantage of this by drilling for natural resources, oil, gas, various minerals. The thing is that Russia does not produce the technology in order to drill in that way. America does, and America does not sell that technology to Russia to drill, precisely because it's a part of the sanctions package that Obama initiated during his presidency. And those sanctions hurt. And so, so that I'm just giving you some facts there. You know, so they and those sanctions have hurt, and some of the oligarchs whose businesses have had to close if their names are on the sanctions list. Some of those businesses that have factories in the United States, Oleg Deripaska, for example, who is a well-known Russian oligarch that's kind of connected to Mueller's report. So they are hitting every day. They are hurtful. Now, going back to your NATO question, NATO, as long as the Russian attack does not harm any of the NATO-aligned countries, then no, they're not going to send their troops. Let me go back to your question, Ben, in regards to sending military hardware to Ukraine. And I'm actually going to write a piece about this, and then I would love to see you respond to it. I think that there's a question of, one, what, as a progressive, I think that progressives generally, we do not have a comprehensive foreign policy that is generally, generally respected, and it needs to be adjusted for the 21st century. And so reality, right. And so here's the thing, and it doesn't have to require military, and I understand the trepidations of my fellow progressives. And here's the one point. We all think about Iraq, right? We think about the first Iraq war. We think about the second Iraq war. One thing and then we also think about Iran. We always think about this aggression towards the Middle East. That is very real. I have always advocated for a demilitarization of our military. I have also advocated for a ban on all nuclear weapons. Now let's go back to our conventional warfare and what our moral responsibility ought to be. The reality is that neither Iran nor Iraq, in the second case, because in the first Iraq war, Iraq invaded Kuwait. We're not going to get into the weeds of that, but let's go back to the second time when, may rest in peace, Colin Powell made this case for invading Iraq. Okay, we know that those were frivolous. We know that was a frivolous case, but that's, but that's a very different situation from what Putin is doing. Putin is attacking another country, right? And so he's going well beyond what Iran is doing, what Iraq is doing. And so and then not only that too, we're thinking about Ukraine, but if you look at the Baltic states, which have their own, Russian populations, right? So he's using this provocation of, I am going to protect my Russian citizens. He has a very ethnocentric way of thinking about things. And so when you ask, could Russian troops, could American troops be sent? It depends on who he attacks in the middle of Iran, of Ukraine. And I'll finally close out by saying, I'll close out by saying this. And should America send hardware to Ukraine? I would say morally, yes. And so, because this is a different situation. So I think America can correct its very militaristic and imperial approach, while at the same time morally supporting a country in its right to defend itself.
I tell you what, we're going to hold it there because we got to go to a quick break. Brother Terrell is going to hang out past the break. We got Georgia Ford coming in on the clock, but there's so much meat on those bones there that you just gave us, man. I got to tell you, the Black Diplomat. I can't even say it. Black Diplomat podcast is where they should get all of this, because you go into great detail, a body of knowledge. Let's go to a quick break. More of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this break.
Set the potato, sunlight that always stays, dinner by the waterway. It's that sweet life. Raise your cross.
DJ Exclusive, thank you so much, brother. It is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. And as we commence this Black History Month, we cannot look at what's happening in the past without seeing how it reflects what's happening right now, from the case of the Ahmaud Arbery killing and the George Floyd murder, all the way to cases that we don't even know about yet. Our sister, Georgia Ford, is on the clock, showing us all that we need to know. On the clock.
Good morning. This morning, I have an update on a case that I've been covering for about 3 years, actually. In the case of Hardel Sherrell, I know many people not familiar with this man, maybe like they would be George Floyd, but Hardel Sherrell was taken into a Beltrami County jail in Minnesota, and after 9 days, he died. We ended up getting our hands on footage of inside the jail to find out exactly what happened, because he had been in communication with his mother. He had informed her that he wasn't feeling well. And eventually what we saw on camera actually reiterated the fact that there was something seriously wrong with him and he needed medical attention. And so the question arose, why didn't he get the medical attention he needed? And so what has been determined now 3 years later, after a lot of reporting that we've done on this issue, a lot of advocating that his mother has done in not just passing laws, but also to get Dr. Leonard, who owns Mend Correctional Care, to get his license suspended. And so after the Minnesota State Medical Board has reviewed his license and reviewed this case, they have determined to suspend his license indefinitely, and they have also fined him with $30,000. They are, in addition to that, going to look through a number of other cases that people have claimed have been mishandled, other inmates who either were found dead in jail due to claims of medical neglect or malpractice. And so while, you know, I don't think Hardel's mother considers this a victory, but it is a step forward for justice for her family. You know, after putting this story out, I've heard cases from all across this nation of other families who have a loved one who died as an inmate in jail. And so this is something that we're going to continue to investigate, other cases like this, because I think oftentimes in mainstream media, these types of cases are not getting the same type of attention as cases where you have police in the field who are using excessive force on unarmed men. But these cases are just as important, because this is an instance where someone's life is in the hands of someone else's who is there and who has taken a vow to provide care, to render aid as needed. And when that does not happen, when people are not upholding their position and their commitment, they should be held accountable. Before we jump into this, I want you guys to hear from Hardel's mother herself. Her name is Delshia Perry. Take a listen.
He died in a cold jail cell on the floor.
"27-year-old Hardel Sherrell went into Beltrami County Jail August 24th, 2018. Just 9 days after being transferred from Dakota County Jail, he died from medical complications. Hardel's death was the third inside the jail within a 3-year time frame. Over the course of several conversations with Hardel's mother, Delshia Perry, we learn more about who Hardel was.
You know, he was happy-go-lucky guy, loved to laugh a lot, loved to make people laugh, you know, had a huge heart, loved his little girls and his family, was crazy about his mama. He was a mama's boy. He loved his mama. He was my best friend. He was so funny. His laughter would fill a room. It was so contagious. He was like, you know, a comedian. And we all used to say, you missed your call because you got jokes. And he was so positive even when things looked really bad. Things may not have turned out in the way that he wanted them to. He always saw the cup as half full instead of half empty. But he made some mistakes, and unfortunately, you know, it cost him his life. I miss my baby. I miss him so much. I know that I'll be reunited with him in heaven, but I miss him so much. Now my 3 little girls that he left behind, the oldest being 8, the youngest is 4, don't have a daddy. And it's so hard to explain to them, especially the oldest, who was the closest to him.
You know, by far, I believe this is probably the hardest story that I've had to report on in my career, specifically because the footage, we were given 6 hours of footage. This is when I was working with Nico of Unicorn Riot, and just sifting through 6 hours of footage of basically just watching Hardel's condition deteriorate. And he had a rare syndrome. It's difficult to say. I believe it's Guillain-Barré syndrome. And if treated, it is a survivable condition. But if not treated, it will paralyze you. And so what we saw in the footage was several hours of him unable to move in his cot. Several hours where he, you know, had fallen out of the bed and was left on the floor. And then nearing the moments when he died, he had urinated and, you know, on himself. And, you know, you saw wardens coming in, still trying to bring him food. And the entire time, you know, he did ask for help, but he was told that he was faking it. And so, you know, even in this clip here, you can see he's trying to move his arm and it's just totally limp. And they just threw him in there. And, you know, this is them coming to check on him. They cover him up and that's it. And so to see the Minnesota State Board review this case 3 years later and take action shows me that, you know, they are paying attention. But had we not have done this story, had this footage have not seen the day of light, this was a mother who was being gaslit. This is a mother who people did not believe. They didn't believe her claims.
And Georgia, let me try to add context to it from you know, the thing that makes this case so horrific is that there was a nurse who, when she was asked to go in, the guards told her he was faking it. And because of her medical expertise, she reported that as soon as she walked in, she knew that this man was in desperate need of help. And so she told them that. They sent him to the hospital, and it was there at the hospital that they completely ignored. And they too said, no, we're not finding anything. Furthermore, when letters were written to the Department of Corrections for the state of Mississippi, state of Minnesota, and others, they all ignored what she had clearly placed in her records as being problematic. And the doctor quickly dismissed him, which is this Dr. Leonard, Todd Leonard, I believe, that we're talking about, whose license has been revoked. So in this case, what makes it so horrific is that you have a medical expert who walks in and says, no, you all are saying he's faking, and I'm telling you that this man is in desperate need of medical help. That's and to your point, had he received that medical help, what he was suffering from, this rare condition he was suffering from, his death was very much preventable. And in the nurse's words, she said that when she sent him to the hospital and learned that they sent him back saying, no, nothing's wrong, and when this letter was sent even to the Department of Corrections in Minnesota, they clearly ignored it. So to your point, when the mother kept pressing, when you all within the press, when you kept pressing, it was then that these situations brought to light. So as far as I'm concerned, the lawsuit that the mother has put forth against the county jail, against the Department of Corrections, and against the hospital, all of those people should be held accountable. You know, how in the world does a hospital ignore what this nurse has told them? They completely ignored it and covered it up, as they do any of these cases. And the only reason, again, you know, when we compare it to the Ahmaud Arbery situation, when that videotape was first shown to the prosecutors, they ignored it. It was only until it came into light that this became a very serious issue. And now we're talking about his death 3 years later, which could have been held, which could have been stopped. So there's a whole lot of folks who should be held accountable. And I pray, God, that the mother's lawsuit against all of these people, the hospital, the Department of Corrections, this doctor's license being taken, all of those folks in the jail who claimed he was faking. But this nurse said, we treat animals better than the treatment that she saw that happened to Brother Hardel. Absolutely horrific. And I have to agree with you. It's one of the most atrocious cases that we've heard about.
Actually, Sister Ford, I want to yield to Brother Terrell Starr, who's still with us. Brother, I'm just, from my perspective, it kind of sadly mirrors, it's just, They treat, like the sister said, they treat us worse than animals sometimes. Brother Starr.
Yes, sir. And you know, as I'm sitting here listening to this, and I just feel broken looking at that video and listening to Georgia, talk about her reporting over this. And I hate to, I guess the best way that I can think about it, I have to tell you what's at the top of my mind, is that I spend a lot of time abroad talking about Ukraine and talking about, Russia and all these other things. You use this language, Russian aggression, criminal aggression, et cetera. And, I'm usually the first Black person that a lot of Ukrainians meet, or people from around this region meet. And I'm the first person that talks to them about the fact that these types of things that we're discussing are normal within our American system. And I have to tell them that part of the reason why I view the world in the way that I view it is because, and why I'm not only critical of Russia or China, I'm also critical of my own country, is because the white men that come over here that a lot of my friends meet all the time never had to walk through the shoes that I walked through. Their lives are not remotely as precarious as those of Black people. And I'm looking at this young brother in this cell, and the thing that stands out to me from what his mother was saying, he made mistakes in life. And I said, Jesus, does a mistake cost you your life? Does a mistake end in death? There's death for mistakes, and I'm pretty sure this man didn't do anything to warrant his own death. But that's how precarious it is being a Black person in this country. And I tell my friends here that I'm here, I work hard. Yes, I'm smart and all these things. But because America is such a white supremacist state, I also say that I'm here because I'm lucky. Because that could have been any of us in that cell. Let's just keep it 100.
Yes.
That could have been any one of us. I am here in significant part because I am lucky enough to not run into the cops that young brother run into, to be in that situation, because he did nothing to deserve that. That is how precarious it is being Black in America. And I tell people that all the time here, and it starts up another conversation about privilege and whiteness. And I tell people, and I'll tell you this, and a lot of people here, this is the first time that they hear it. I said, listen, as a Ukrainian, as a Russian, as a Belarusian, you can walk down the street and not have U.S. citizenship and not have to run into the fears of a police officer that will look at you as a threat. I, as an American citizen, have to face that threat far greater than you, a foreigner in my own country, would ever have to face.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. So that's just some context.
So Georgia, my question to you, Georgia, is right now, who is, we talked about the license of Todd Leonard being pulled. Is there anybody in the jail that's being held accountable? the Minnesota Department of Corrections that's being held accountable, the folks at the hospital are being held accountable. Because again, in the case of George Floyd, it was not only Chauvin, but these other officers who stood there and allowed this thing to happen. In this case, because a medical expert had told them from the moment she saw Brother Harold that this brother was, Brother Sherrell, that this brother was in need of medical assistance. So given that the warning signs were certainly given in a timely enough manner that this brother's life could have been spared, is there anybody else in this chain of commands about this horrific death that are being held accountable?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I appreciate you mentioning the nurse. We referred to her as a whistleblower because she was the only one within the system who stood up. And then even after Hardel passed away, she was the only one who spoke out and was trying to help his mother advocate for justice. In terms of who else is being held accountable at this time, what we know is that that lawsuit is still pending. So there may be some other entities or individuals held accountable through that lawsuit that you mentioned earlier. And at this time, because it has been put in front of the Minnesota State Medical Board, they are investigating who else could potentially be held responsible, as well as other cases that were handled by not just Dr. Leonard himself, but he owned Mend Correctional Care. Mend Correctional Care has contracts with the state all across, the state of Minnesota, where they go into the jails and they're the contractor who's there to provide medical services. So this isn't just an isolated one-off in one jail kind of thing, or one doctor overseeing, a certain amount of patients in one jail. This was a doctor who owned a company that had contracts with correctional facilities all across the state. So now all of their cases and contracts are being investigated. As we've seen, even with this update, it took 3 years for his license to be suspended. And so I imagine it's going to take some time before we know if anyone else will be held accountable. But the license of Dr. Leonard, I believe, also puts his company, Mend Correctional Care, in jeopardy.
Oh, yeah.
So that would mean another entity likely would need to come in, although that's still being played out. And I think he has until March to figure that out. There was one amendment in the conclusion that was made by the judge who reviewed the state board's recommendations. And there was one amendment that said after 6 months, he could reapply for his license. But after looking at, it's a 164-page document that the judge issued in regards to this matter. And the very last sentence was, this should have never happened, and we have to make sure it never happens again. And so George, I was just going to say, you don't hear language like that from a judge very often. That's not based on any law or anything. And so to see that type of language in the judge's conclusion does affirm me that they're likely not going to renew his license in 6 months.
And George, if I'm not mistaken, his company oversees a third of the state of Minnesota.
That's right.
Jail.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that makes this, I want to bring this to light, is that if I'm not mistaken, the FBI is now investigating this situation, if I'm not mistaken. But again, to me, the fact that the nurse wrote the letter and it went to the Department of Corrections for the state, it went all these other folks who are now using Leonard simply as the scapegoat. All of these people saw this letter, and in this letter, when you go back and look at it, it was very clear that this man was in desperate need of medical attention. And if anybody had a humane bone in their body that could look at us as something other than animals, all of these people, those in the state, those on the medical board, the nursing boards, the hospitals, there's a whole bunch of heads that need to roll and be held accountable in this senseless murder, if you will, neglect of this brother.
That's right. Yeah,
murder.
It is so disgusting. At the end of the 160-page document, they say this should have never happened. But I'm thinking, Brother Starr, how you said this is just almost, it could have happened to any one of us as Black people, whether we're a Black woman, man, non-gender conforming. It could happen to us as soon as we get pulled over. And so I appreciate the language that this should never have happened. I think the question for me is, how do we make sure that this never happens again? We're coming up to the end of the hour. And I want to just, Brother Terrell Starr, before we get out of here, I just want to ask you to tell everyone how they can get up with you and support your work.
Thank you very much, Ben. So if you want to follow my work, first, go to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to Black Diplomats Podcast. It's the intersection of foreign policy and race. You can also follow me on Twitter, and you can see that in the Siron there. It's Russian_star. And so if you just go through those two ways, I'm easy to be. You can find my work. I talk about the Russia-Ukraine conflict every day. And on Twitter, you can find me there as well. And I host twice a week spaces where we discuss this issue.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping to get you back. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Mac.
Yeah, Brother Starr, before we go, I just want to tell you how warm it is in my heart to hear a brother talking about foreign policies from a firsthand experience. My heart is warmed at your body of work. I want to thank you. And then Sister Ford, I never would have heard of this case had it not been for your efforts. And I just want to thank you for continuing to be that sound, to be our modern day Ida B. Wells. Thank you the both of you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And thank you, Georgia. And thank you, Ben, for giving me the space, because people don't give me the opportunity to speak in this platform in this way. But again, thank you so much. I'm really grateful.
Oh, no, absolutely. We're going to have you back as much as we can. I love to see, Brother Mac, like you said, I absolutely love to see us talking about issues, because a lot of times they won't let us talk about anything on mainstream media unless it's race. And Sister Ford, again, we didn't get a chance to go over the federal charges, but you've been following the federal case and the three men who have not only following, but you've been in the courtroom on several occasions of the three men who are also charged in the murder, or the killing, rather, of George Floyd. And I know my language isn't as precise there, but we want to thank you for that accurate coverage and all the time that you've been spending in the courtroom.
Absolutely. I'll have an update for you on that case tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right. So that said, we're going to turn it over to DJ Exclusive when we come back, like it or not, with Rebecca Zor, Queen of Zor. She's in the house somewhere. We'll be back with more of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this.
Back, oh yeah.
Good morning again, everyone. Shout out, Brother Terrell Starr coming through. Terrell, we greatly appreciate you and thank you so much. And always shout out to Mrs. Georgia Fort holding it down, doing the work, y'all. We love you, Georgia. Thank you so much again. Shout out to everybody, man, that is tuned in so far. Make sure that you hit that like button. And if you have not already, make sure that you hit the Patreon up as well. Patreon.com/like it or not. Patreon.com/the BTD Show. We are going to get into our new Patreon members in a moment, y'all. So stay tuned. More coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Like it or not, coming up next. Good morning, everybody.
Oh, please say,
hey, Miss Sophia. Good morning. Afraid not. Good morning.
I hope you feel that way too.
Amber Layla, good morning to you. Shelby Hall. Letitia Israel, Chris Lionheart. Good morning, everybody. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in this morning. We see y'all. Infinite Content, good morning, brother. Miss Snuru, good morning.
When I get you back, oh yeah.
Silk City Socialist, good morning. Brandy Rubble, good morning to you.
When I get you back, oh yeah.
Good morning to you.
Cause I don't wanna lose you. I hope you feel that way too. No, I don't wanna lose you. Baby, don't go. Oh, when I get you back, oh yeah. I promise you'll never leave me. When it comes to you and me, there's no one else I'd rather be with. When I get you back, oh yeah. When I get you back, oh yeah.
Maureen Weber, good morning.
When I get you back, oh yeah.
All right, y'all, our new patron members. Here we go, y'all. Michelle K, Rob R, Jason M. Our new Twitch subscribers, we have False Banana, who resubscribed with Prime. It's been subscribed for 5 months now. Sammy Lynn the Con Dragon resubscribed, and they've been subscribed for 10 months. Shout out Sammy Lynn the Con Dragon and Riverboat Jack. Shout out Riverboat Jack, y'all, who rated the channel with a party of 92 viewers, y'all. 92 viewers, man. Shout out Riverboat Jack, man. Y'all come on back, enjoy y'all. Make sure y'all lounge around. And if you have not already done it, patreon.com/likeitornot, patreon.com/the BPD show, man. Y'all go ahead and get some of this good content, and don't miss out on the Patreon parties, of course. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Oh, and of course, did you hear about the restaurant called Karma? There's no menu. Get what you deserve. Good morning, everybody.
You're trying hard to pursue a dream that's not your own. Don't care about what they expect you to be, 'cause when you find out what that truly means, wherever you are,
here's a good one.
You still feel alone.
What do you call it when you mix alcohol and American literature? What do you call it when you mix alcohol and American literature? Tequila Mockingbird.
Don't close your eyes, 'cause we are not alright. Stuck in our heads and can't find our way out. Don't close your eyes, 'cause we are not alright. In the midst of madness, we seek you.
All right, y'all. We're getting ready to get back to being Brother Mac here. But before we do, what did one saggy boob say to the other saggy boob? If we don't get the proper support, people will think we're nuts. Back to Brother Mac and Ben, y'all. Good morning, everybody.
So don't go pursue a dream.
That's how you bring them in. You kill them, you knock them off the game so they're not prepared for us. And when they come on screen, they lost as hell.
Bro, what I appreciate about this show is that no matter what we talk about, we always come back to the baseline of cutting edge dad jokes. James, like, I don't even know if that's considered a dad joke. That's like a stepdad joke right there.
What it say on the website is a dad joke. So look, I just follow it. It's the whole Instagram I got. I ain't gonna tell y'all what it is though.
Don't let the people know where you get your sources from.
Look, I know a few people know.
Believe, Brother DJ, that's just coming from your genius.
Yep, Dr. Mack, you're absolutely right. These are all made up by me, handwritten, copywritten, and all that other good stuff.
James sit around in heaven. You got to see the heaven in the background of James's show. Look at like he got the clouds. He sits back there just writing from God. These are God jokes. These are dad jokes. God dad jokes.
God dad jokes. See?
Yeah, God dad jokes. This is not something that you would tell your kids as a dad, but maybe as a God dad, to think you're nuts.
Uncle jokes. These are the things I would tell my nieces and nephews. Uncle jokes.
Listen, I want to get y'all opinion on a couple of things. And I don't know if we have any video or anything, but Brother Mac, we were just talking about the body of work of Brother Terrell Starr, and even that of Georgia Ford, who she's here with us every day that she could possibly be here. But the thing that stands out to me is that brother, he's been on the front of Russia and Ukraine for many, many, many years. He's not new to this. He's true to this, but you would rarely see him be afforded an opportunity on mainstream media. But as soon as I knew the situation was popping off, I knew he would be one of the people, one of the best voices that we can get to give us some insight.
You know, Ben, it's one thing for brothers like you and I to sit over here and pontificate on what we think is going on, but that brother is actually boots on the ground in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And to hear his perspective was just so incredibly heartwarming to me, because again, you know, we don't see the likeness, our likeness, talking about geopolitical events in the context, in the academia of what this brother is bringing to light for us. So I got to say, Brother Starr, you absolutely warmed my soul just to be able to hear that perspective. And it was quite shocking to me to think that even though the Biden administration has been very forceful in saying, Russia, do not invade Ukraine, do not do it. I understand the sanctions and all of those things that are going down, but to think that at best, all we'll do is say, we'll place sanctions on you. I don't think Russia gives a damn about sanctions like that. So it was very surprising to me to think that neither the U.S. nor NATO would provide military force, not just weaponry, but boots on the ground to repel a Russian invasion into Ukraine.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me so much, but I do want to, I think that the reasons behind I would like to explore more why he said that, right? I have my reasons why they wouldn't do it, but I definitely would want to see what Brother Starr says as to why he suggests that the United States would not. Of course, my position is that they should not. And I think, you know, there's other opinions. So I want to continue to flesh out that conversation because you know, the last thing that brother said, the last 30 seconds of the first segment was so rich. We literally could spend 3 days on just dissecting that much. So we're going to have Brother Terrell Starr back and then some other guests as we unpack that conversation. So from Kiev to College Park, DJ exclusive.
and
how you doing this morning, man?
And Ben, let me just say this. In regards to the case
go ahead,
of Hardel Sherrell that Sister Ford brought to us, the thing that is absolutely boggling, that boggled my mind as we left the segment, is that Georgia was saying that she had been following this case for 3 years.
3 years.
When you take a look at what the nurse reported in her letters to these people, the words of Dr. King clearly come to mind. Justice delayed is justice denied.
That's it.
To think that this nurse, this medical practitioner, quickly identified the medical conditions of Brother Sherrell, and to think that 3 years later, they're still looking into it, being what she reported, what Georgia has been reporting has been so clear. It is just asinine to me that it has taken this type of delay in bringing justice to not only the family of Brother Sherrell, but to hold these folks accountable, to think that there's even the slightest possibility that this privatized company called Men under Dr. Todd Leonard, that they could even remotely be given more contract. All of their contract. We're talking about a third of Minnesota's jails are under contract with this demonic individual who, as this nurse says, they would treat animals better than they treated this brother. And in her mind, she said that, not in her mind, but in her words, she said, it was like I was witnessing a murder. That's how clear it was to her that this brother was not faking, that he was in need. She said the moment she walked in the cell, she could smell the urine and knew that this brother was absolutely not faking. And to think that Georgia has been following this case for so long, that the evidence that could have prevented his death is so absolutely clear. To know that members of that jail looked at him and said, no, he's faking. The only and you have to get into the mindset of somebody who would say that is because they don't even equate humanity to us as a Black folk.
Man, Dr. Max. See, I wanted us to come back in this interstitial part and just kind of laugh. But bro, not only do they treat us worse than animals, if we treat an animal as bad as they treat us, they're going to put us in jail. And even after if we serve our time, for treating an animal the wrong way, they still find a way to dehumanize us. It's like, at what point can Black people just get justice delayed is justice denied? And that's so infuriating, because if that mother does not get justice for her son before she dies, then she has not gotten justice. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be in a world where evil people keep winning, James. I'm just tired of it.
But Ben, I want you to understand this, and this is what I say to people in regards to my study of the African American experience in this country. People will say to me, hey, Carl, wait a minute. Why are Black folks so up and roar about slavery? Slavery, it's not like the U.S. is the first nation to ever participate in slavery. Slavery has existed since man has been on this earth. And I would say to them, I do agree with that. But this case that we see today that's why you have to look at yesterday to bring understanding to this case today. When you look at yesterday, in the case of American slavery, the uniqueness of American slavery, unlike any form of slavery in the history of the world, there was no other form of slavery that took man out of the human equation. And when you look at the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Part 3, which we now know as the 3/5 clause, they define a Black man as 3/5 of a man. So there, in America's most profound document, the Constitution of the United States, they took Black folks out of the human equation. That is what is unique about American slavery. And now what did we see today? We saw in the case of Brother Sherrell, a person who was not viewed as a human. They looked at him as less than an animal. He has to be faking. He can't be suffering this way. So there again is America's mindset, that they don't look at us as humans. To Brother Starr's point, to Brother DJ's point, to your point, to all of us as Black men, Black folk. When we have an encounter with law enforcement, they don't look at us as humans. All of a sudden, they come in with these preconceived notions, stopping us for every little thing you can imagine. And now all of a sudden, this type of inhumane treatment is heaped upon us. And yet you want me to stand for the national anthem and tell you how much I believe in America. Yes, I do believe in America. But in the case of the white supremacists, of those people who are of privilege, see, it's the election of Obama in which they now look at us and say, see, we're there at this perfect union because you got your one. Damn the crumb. We want to be able to enjoy the whole field of wheat that is used to make the bread, not just the crumb of the bread.
That's right. Well, that's a sermon. That'll preach all by itself, Brother Mac, because they've been so used to us getting crumbs that when we ask for a loaf, they call it oppression.
And again, Ben, that's why I am so in awe of Georgia Fort and her body of work and bringing these types of cases, because they simply remind us that, yes, although America is a great nation, America is not as perfect as she needs to be. And the moment that we began to believe that we have reached this level of equality, that is where we begin to lose to the powers that be, because racism will continuously, at every turning point, when it sees that we are becoming a more humane society, they will invoke their efforts to mandate and keep in place that white superiority level of living in this country. And that is what we must stay cautious
And it's not even that supreme. It's not even, that's the thing to me, is like, y'all talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene here. We're talking about Matt Gaetz and Donald Trump. Like, this supremacy that they got, that they think they got, it ain't that supreme. They looking kind of pitiful, if you ask me. But it ceases to be funny when you realize how much power these clowns got.
Well, but white supremacy has always not made sense. It has never, ever made sense. And so that's why, again, my heart is warm to listen to the body of work of Sister Georgia Fort. I'm going to always refer to her as Sister Georgia Ida B. Wells Fort. She is that good in bringing these cases and insight to us as a people, to remind us of just how much work we have to do. I don't want people to look at just because we saw the impact, the positive impacts behind the George Floyd case, or the positive holding of accountability behind the Ahmaud Arbery case, as thinking, okay, we are there now. No, we must continuously be diligent. And that is what Sister Ford brings to the table. This insight into why a situation of Russia invading Ukraine by the expertise of Brother Starr gets us in a mindful. Because again, Ben, trust and believe, if that geopolitical event occurs, if you have been keeping up with Wall Street over the past month, and you know that January has been a horrific month for the stock market, trust and believe the market, Wall Street, does not like uncertainty. And if Russia invades Ukraine, what you would see in that market is going to be devastating. And how will it impact us as everyday Black folks in this country? Because if those companies start losing money, which they will, and they begin to have to answer to their shareholders and cut costs, trust and believe, cutting labor is one of the easiest things to do. And I will remind us, we were the last hired, and trust and believe,
first fired.
And as they say, when America catches a cold, Black folks get the flu.
That's right. That's right. DJ exclusive. The Queen is in the building. She's into the Citadel. Let's drop her song. Like it or not, it's about to go down.
Y'all know what time it is. Good morning, y'all. Get your coffee and tea. All right, y'all. The Queen is here. Finally, girl. God dang. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. Like it or not, it's starting.
Like it or not is on your channel, Politics and culture, we change skin like we're supposed to, Interviews and all the news, we get to choose what gets the views. Like it or not, with Queen is on. It's starting now, so stick around.
Like it or not, it's going down.
Dwayne, can you full scream and let the people see the room real quick?
Y'all stick around. Oh, Rebecca's on.
Boom, there it is, y'all. Y'all see the clouds above the head and all my stuff behind the background. Shout out Q in the building. Good morning, Q.
Good story for you. Oh,
all my trinkets and all my organized chaos in the background.
That's my dog.
Thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate it.
This is his show. He's a politics pro.
Oh, Booker, good morning to you.
TJ is
my mama say my head always in the clouds, so I'm just like, I might as well build it then.
I stay dropping them jams.
Like it or not, it's going down. Like it or not, y'all stick around.
It's 10 to 10:30, Dwayne.
It's starting now.
Are you stupid?
Like it or not, it's about to go down.
Like it or not, with Benjamin Dixon, starts now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody.
Ooh, look at the Queen. Look at the Queen.
Good morning and welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth
and not care who doesn't like it. Good morning, guys. How y'all doing today? It is
good.
The first day of Black History Month, you guys. Yeah. And I'm excited. I mean, it's like somebody said online today that means it's February 1st, because Ben was going to say it is February 1st. So it's February 1st. But on Twitter, I saw Maxwell, beautiful made man, who's half Haitian and Puerto Rican, Maxwell, the singer. He was like, today we celebrate Black people. And I was like, no, every day we celebrate Black people. Today the world decides that they're going to give us about 28 days to celebrate Black people. But we celebrate 28. Black folks, and we celebrate our Blackness. Blacker than McDonald's, 365. You know they got
come on, and a quarter. we take that quarter.
Every minute, every hour, the moment I wake up. And I look at myself looking crazy, and the way that I can transform myself with just a good shower and just a little pat on the face, because I am Black, God has blessed me. So it's like, I'm just happy to be Black. Black is beautiful. Black is every day. But we are just going to be blackety black, 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 just to ruffle some feathers in
because I'm black, y'all. Because I'm black, y'all. I'm blackity black because I'm black, y'all. And I'm black, y'all. And I'm black, y'all. And I'm blackity black because I'm black, y'all.
No matter how light skinned we are,
hijack the show like that. But I thought that in my Shana Na. We Shana Na black.
Okay, Shana Na black.
We missionary Baptist church black around here.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego black.
Come on, in a billy goat.
In a billy goat black.
In a billy goat.
I used to bootleg Medea CDs, DVDs black around here. That's how black I am.
I used to sell bootleg DVDs to my daddy black. Let me stop.
You came to the barbecue with your own to-go plates black.
Oh my goodness. No. Don't you come with your own gold plate. That's how you get never invited back. You don't come to nobody's house with your own gold plate, Rebecca Azor.
Yeah. Oh,
I smoke Black and Miles like they cigarettes
sure
black.
All week. Listen.
James. Rebecca,
we chill at the front of Stop and Go or whatever your corner store at the time was called, black, and they all know you. Everybody knows you, black.
Oh man.
But Queen,
spicy chicken sandwich from Checkers black.
Oh my God.
Queen,
what's up, Dr. Mack?
Queen, if I could, I think it's important for us to understand how this happened. When you made the statement, is if white folks gave us February and it's 28 days. I think it's important to understand that Dr. Woodson, a black man, chose this month. He didn't care if white folks celebrated it or not. And the first observance of what we now know as Black History Month occurred in 1926. And it was called Negro History Week. The reason he chose the second week in February is in honor of Abraham Lincoln, who was born February 12th, and Frederick Douglass, who was born February 14th. And in honor of those two men, he wanted to set aside a time for us as black folks to study us as black folks, because white America had clearly omitted and deliberately kept our history and our accomplishments into the development of America away from us. So the first observance of what we now know as Black History Month occurred in 1926. It was called Negro History Week. They replaced the word Negro with the word black. And in the 1970s, that Black History Week now became a month-long celebration. But that was an effort of us as a people to study us as a people. And we didn't give a damn if white folks cared or not cared to be inside. The efforts of Dr. Woodson was for us to study us.
Well, there you go. There you go. Black history in the middle.
We actually...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I learned my lesson. I ain't gonna cut you off no more.
Damn Zoom.
I love that you clarified that, Dr. Mack. It's funny because on our old show, we actually had a whole episode about Dr. Woodson. But you
remember, I am going to interrupt you there because you remember they shut us down during Black History Month.
After we did the Black History Month, they sure did. But
I used to have a black ass show down after Black History Month. They were filed for that.
They were.
Go ahead, Rebecca. I'm so sorry. It was PTSD. I have flashbacks.
But when I say that, Dr. Mack, I say that to say even our struggle in getting the 1 week, and and it's beautiful that we fought for that, and that we are still fighting for more recognition to this day. We went from 1 week. We went from being calling the having Negro in the title to Black History Month and it being a month. But it's almost like we're still fighting. Because even in our Black History Month, it's capitalized through the white eye, right? And it's like every time, we have Black History Month, even in school Black History Month, my education wasn't on how it came about at all. I had to learn HBCU about how it came about. I had to learn, about more than just Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks through my but even in education, they gave us that time, but they even took away what we were supposed to be learning and how we were supposed to be educated and how we were supposed to be celebrating in Black History Month. And it's almost like as soon as it starts, the day that it ends, there's no more celebration of our Black history. But I do love that it was fought for, it was created. And I love what it stands for. But I think throughout time, it stopped the evolution of what it could be and what it can be. And I think nowadays, we're now putting more effort saying, listen, we're going to make it really Black for you guys this month. It is very important to understand the history and where it came from, who fought for it, who brought it together. And and for us to continue doing that same fight, because it didn't only just start with it being a month, it was just a week. We didn't even have much recognition. And so now I think it's time for us to push it a step further and move it further, because how it was developed in my time when I understood Black history was just Martin Luther King had a dream. That's about it. Rosa Parks sat on the back of the bus, and that's about it.
Right. And I know we got some stories to get to today, but real quick, Tiger asked the question and dropped a super chat. How long until Black History Month is seen as CRT?
I think it's already seen as CRT, to be honest. I mean,
I really think so too.
Yeah, when you're taking away Zora Neale Hurston books and what is it, The Bluest Eye, and all these books that I grew up on during Black History Month, those were the things that we could read. Never really learned about. They just made me write a paper on it and called it a day. They asked me what stories do I want to read and write a paper on, and those were the ones that I chose because they were your Black history. Dust. Yeah, that was it for me. We didn't go through it as a class. We didn't go through it, none of it. And I think that now that they have taken it away. This is what I'm talking about. Now that they've taken it away, in our education system, it's already considered. They don't want kids to read about what happened and what has happened and these true stories. They don't want us to learn about that. Even when we were in school, that's why they watered it down. They gave us a watered down version of us celebrating ourselves. And as soon as the month ended, I don't even think we celebrated it for the full month in school. But as soon as the holiday ended, the month-long holiday ended, it was like back to normal. Let's start reading about people that really don't matter to people who look like me all year long that we are in school. Right. So, yeah.
But Queen, I would say this to you, DJ, and Ben, just from almost a spiritual sense. I have to believe that Dr. Carter G. Woodson right now is looking down at this show, at the four of us, and he has to be warmed in his heart to know that here are some folks who are pushing the agenda every day to talk about the beauty of us as a Black folk. And I do believe that the heart will believe what the mouth speaks. And so in this quest of what white folks ain't doing, the beauty is what you, Queen, what you, Brother DJ, and what you, Brother Ben, are doing, what we are doing to promote that legacy and that understanding of what Dr. Woodson wanted in this time for us as a people, to celebrate us as a people. And now we do it every day. Like it or not.
Like it or not. Oh,
like I felt that
coming.
Amen.
I'm sorry, I was about to get real ignorant there, because that you really said a word there. Let me bring myself back in, Brother Matt, because sometimes it's easy for me to go from Martin Luther King to Trap House real easily. But the thing, honestly, I had not considered that perspective, right? While Rebecca, you're saying, and actually to Tiger's question, he said, when would they consider Black History Month as critical race theory? They have quite a few problems on their hands, because it's not only about the history that is past. It's about the history that's being made. It's about what's being done right now. It's about the fact that we don't give a damn if they don't want to celebrate us. We're going to celebrate ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I was about to start, looking back at it. I thought we had some music on. I'm sorry. I got a little excited about that little tidbit, Rebecca. Let me digress.
No, we're going to celebrate regardless.
That Black. Looking back at it.
Black.
That's very Black of you. And that's okay. But no, we're going to celebrate regardless. There's so much for us to celebrate. There's so much beauty in us. And I hope that we are buying Black, not just this month, but every month.
Every month.
Black owners.
Every
day. It's very important.
That's right, Dr. Matt.
Yeah. Every day, like the calendar. Listen, and where can they find that calendar, Dr. Mack?
Yes.
If you want a copy of Black Heritage Day for 366 days, I even got a day in there for leap year about our Blackness.
Yes, God.
But you can get that at www.blackheritagedays.com. The calendar is $19.99, free shipping, so we can get it to you every day.
And I encourage everyone that is watching, if you have not already purchased this calendar, purchase this damn calendar ASAP, y'all. Y'all need to get this calendar, man. ASAP. Dr. Mack, shout out to you, brother.
If you have a Google device, y'all could just
try it, Rebecca. See what happens when you ask.
This is not Google, but you want me to see what happens with Alexa?
No, ask Google. Ask Google. There's always a Google nearby.
Always.
Okay. Alexa, stop. It's not about you. Hey, Google, what happened today in Black history?
On February 1st, 1902, in Joplin, Missouri, writer and leading light of the Harlem Renaissance Langston Hughes was born. The great-nephew of John Mercer Langston, Hughes is regarded by many as one of the most prolific and talented American writers of the 20th century. As a poet, some of his most notable works include Shakespeare in Harlem, 1942, and Selected Poems, 1959. Also an accomplished playwright, Hughes' play Mulatto was produced on Broadway in the 1930s. His play Black Nativity remains a holiday season favorite in the Black community. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Carl Mack.
That's what's up. I too had no idea that he was the creator of the Black Nativity, Brother Mac.
Yeah. Me neither.
Every black church at Christmas time does some version of that.
So yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
No, yeah, that's me. I didn't know that the Black Nativity was something. I just thought that was the thing, right? Because that's how it was brought up. I don't know it no other way but the Black Nativity story.
Now look at the juxtaposition there.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, the other thing that was interesting to me was, the lineage of these people, that he is the great nephew of John Mercer Langston. And again, as I said, John Mercer Langston was a prominent lawyer. And when you read his history, just a phenomenal man. And he started the first Black law school in this country, which was Howard Law School, and then went on to become the namesake of Langston University.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow. See, man, look, if nothing else, when you leave the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show, like it or not, on the clock, and you get Black Heritage Days, you're gonna be blacker when you're gonna leave blacker than where you came. Like they say in church, you're gonna leave better than where you came. That's all, Rebecca. Yeah. I still got
What's in the news? Is that what you said? What's in the news? That's kind
of what I was.
Right. That's what I heard. There's so much in the news. Honestly, I think that let's just start right here locally, right here in Georgia. Some updates with the Ahmaud Arbery. Trial. It's going to be a trial. A federal judge Monday rejected the plea deal reached by prosecutors and Travis McMichael on hate crime charges, an agreement that would have precluded his federal trial in Ahmaud Arbery's killing. So earlier, McMichael had agreed to plead guilty to a single hate crime, interference with rights, in exchange for prosecutors recommending he serve years in federal prison. Under the agreement, McMichael, 36, would have been transferred from a state prison to federal custody. After completing the federal sentence, he would have been returned to Georgia to finish his sentence of life in prison without parole. 5 of those final years would have counted toward his time served. So I think the judge
video of that?
So I think the judge who is her name is Judge Lisa Godby. Let's take a look at how she felt about the sentencing guidelines.
For a judge in Georgia rejecting a plea deal on the hate crime trial of one of the men already convicted in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. They had hoped to serve in federal prison, not in state prison, where many believe conditions could be worse. What the judge said today. Steve Osunsami in Georgia.
A federal judge tonight is dashing the hopes of Travis and Gregory McMichael, who are trying to avoid a federal hate crimes trial for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and spend most of the time they've already been sentenced to in a federal prison, which is usually less dangerous than a state prison, especially for a former police officer.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty.
In November, the father and son, along with their neighbor, William Roddy Bryant, were all convicted of murdering the black 25-year-old on this tree-lined street in South Georgia. They were each sentenced to life in state prison, but only the neighbor, Mr. Bryan, was allowed the possibility of parole. In a deal that was agreed to by federal prosecutors, the McMichaels were hoping this federal judge would allow them to plead guilty to one of the hate crimes charges and, in exchange, allow them to spend their next 30 years in a federal prison.
I'm not surprised that the McMichaels are concerned about their safety in a Georgia state prison. I think that they wanted to go to a federal prison because they felt it would be safer, and those prisons tend to be a little bit nicer.
Late today, the judge rejected the deal for Travis McMichael and essentially his father, too, saying she didn't like being held to a 30-year sentence. The family of Ahmaud Arbery was firmly against this, too.
It's disrespectful. I fought so hard to get these guys in state prison. Very disrespectful.
Ahmaud Arbery's family says that these men deserve state prison, which happens to be the place where the U.S. Department of Justice is currently investigating whether this state does enough to protect prisoners from other prisoners. The judge in this case is asking the men if they still want to plead guilty. If not, jury selection begins a week from today.
Yeah, the universe is on our side. My God.
Of course. And y'all knew they were going to try to pull this crap. Of course they were going to try to pull this crap. Y'all trying to go somewhere so y'all can be on vacation. Oh, yeah, they don't want to because they know that ass about to get towed out the frame. And I'm glad it is. God damn it. Pissed me off. Sorry, excuse me.
That's all right.
I can't. I'm not. But
literally,
Rebecca and Brother Mac, earlier, the case that George is following, it's because of the men's care correctional, whatever the name of that company is, that operates on the state level in Minnesota that allowed a black man to die in state custody. It was a private contractor, right? We just got through talking about it. But now here in Georgia, they don't want to go to state prison because they know state prison is where they send our black men to be ground into a pulp. So of course they don't want to go there.
And again, it always boggles my mind when they're trying to determine whether or not a situation like this, a murder like this, is a hate crime. And I think they the reason it boggles my mind is because in its quintessential definition, hate is an intense dislike for someone. How much more intense can it be if a man is jogging down the street and you kill him? Now, one has to look at the motive of why would you kill him? Well, it's clear. And America refuses to want to acknowledge race. You try to tell me that there was a little white boy jogging down the street.
Come on.
That another guy in a vehicle would have taken out his camera and videotaped him. And then these two white men would have jumped out their truck and killed this white man for jogging down the street. What happened to Ahmaud Arbery was hateful. It was sinister. Right. And to whatever degree that these men must be punished and held accountable, it shall be.
So you're right.
I think when I look back on this story that's happening right now, that's unfolding in front of us, and when I look back at the story of like Emmett Till and how white people just took upon them, let me go and handle this guy that I think is a threat for whatever reason. And, this young man, and let me kill him. And, everybody will see that I was right because I'm white and because, I just feel like black people look suspicious. Black people are suspicious. Black young boys aren't people. Black men aren't people. And that's what I just kind of look at. It's like these men took it upon themselves. No, they weren't officials. They weren't anything. They took it upon themselves to go and say, you're black, you don't look right. The fact that they even had in the courtroom a conversation about what his toenails were looking like. It's problematic that they really thought, okay, I took away somebody's life.
Get away with it.
No real reason, but because I felt like he was a threat, because he was black, and because he was sticking up for himself. You don't do that to us, white folks. You were wrong. You were in the wrong place, okay? And they took away his life, and now they're supposed to serve life, but they're crying about it. The pain that they've caused multiple people, so many families who have lost their loved ones to similar situations have to relive this all the time. And to relive it with the possibility of somebody finally getting justice kind of gives those people justice too, to say, okay, there's some change going on. But these white people want to use their privilege to say, I don't want to do the time for a crime that I committed. It was a black person. Come on, guys. Can you guys see my case in this? I need to be protected. And there's so much that goes into this when I just hear it, and it really hurts. It really hurts me, and the disrespect that they would want to say, I don't deserve life in prison. They don't deserve their life without their child, without their loved one.
Come on.
And Queens, right? And Queens, since you evoked the name of Emmett Till, I'm looking at the calendar, and on September 2nd, I have the story of Emmett Till and when his mother left the casket open. So I want people to understand this white privilege that you talk about within the judicial system, because the two men on August 28, 1955, who kidnapped this young child, took him from his uncle's home and murdered him. The two men were Roy Bryant and his half-brother, John Milken. And now Bryant, when you hear that name, understand that his wife, Carol Bryant, is the cousin of the former governor of the state of Mississippi. But when that jury came back from this particular situation, it took them 67 minutes for an all-white jury to find both of these men not guilty. And it was later that they were paid money by Look magazine, and they admitted, and the reason they admitted it because they were paid money is because they knew they were protected by double jeopardy. Once they were found not guilty, even if they admit to the crime at this point, you can't go back and retry them. So this is the heinous kinds of way that the American judicial system has dealt with us as Black folk in this country. And so now justice, when you bring up Emmett Till, there's a similarity between, these two white men who killed Emmett Till and these two white men who killed Ahmaud Arbery. And now, because of the diligence of us as a people, we now are going to make sure that these men are held accountable, because those two who killed Emmett Till, they never saw a day in jail. Never saw a day in jail. And it took an all-white jury 67 minutes to say, no, what they did was okay. It was fine. No problem.
Can you imagine? Can you? Well, actually, I don't think there's too many examples. I think there's a lot of Black people there's a lot of people in general who can imagine having a court, having a system tell you that they're innocent for the harm that they cause you, your people, your family, your child. All these cases where these juries come back and say they're innocent when we know these people have blood on their hands, right? It extrapolate right to Kyle Rittenhouse. Go ahead.
But Ben, what is heinous is, just like in this case that Sister Ford brought to us about Brother Sherrell, you have a medical, in the face of overwhelming evidence, right? So let's go back to the Rodney King situation. You're looking at a videotape.
That's right.
And yet still, regardless of the evidence, no, everything was fine. They're found not guilty. And what did it take for us to bring about justice in the case of Rodney King? We had to go and burn this bitch down,
Right. And I even want to take it back to the Emmett Till case, because that's because I watched it, the Women of the Movement, which took me like 2 weeks to really get through the series, because I knew before watching it what was gonna happen. Right. And I think they did a really good job explaining it. But I also went and watched many documentaries. You know how when you leave the movie theater, you feel just so captivated by what happened, so you go do more research. Right. And now I know the story of Emmett Till, but I've never let myself really, because it just was a lot for me. But we live it daily. The fact that they didn't have any witnesses, no cameras, no nothing to really say what happened, they were able to just go off of the words of the white men. And the fact that in that judicial system, and where they thought it was okay for them to just get white men as the jury, the fact that was lawful really bothers me. And today they still try to do things like that, depending on where you are. But that it bothered me, because he never had an opportunity, he never had a chance. And then, like you said, Look magazine put out, they waited until after they knew that these men wouldn't go to trial. Mm-hmm. And they said, now there's an opportunity for us to tell the story. And the story probably was told, of course, the correct way, to still continue to make them seem like they did, he was running his little black mouth, and because he was talking to white women in a certain kind of way, allegedly, that he deserved to be murdered the way that he did. And that confession in the magazine, to me, was shocking that they could just do that. All of a sudden, they could just do that because that's our judicial, that's our system, right? This is what's supposed to protect us as people. And then it takes me back to when he went missing, when Emmett went missing. This is a boy gone missing. It reminds me of all the people who have gone missing, our kids that have gone missing. And when they're black, they get no national attention, nothing. It's still something that is happening today, all of it. And it bothers me because when that young white woman was missing, it took over media. It took over media. Yep. We still have that other young man, I forget, we had the other young man that we still haven't gotten any more information on, who was found in the lake, who was missing and who was found in the lake. We don't have no information on that because nobody cared to really, it's because it was a black boy. And police didn't handle it the way they were supposed to. Days went on, and they didn't handle it the way they were supposed to. And most times there's a relationship that I've seen. There's relationships with the family and the people who did the killing. And in the Arbery case, these are somebody was a former police officer or something in the force. And there's a connection all the time where they feel like they can get away. The privilege is there. And it shakes me up because we're still living the same thing, different time, different way. And we have things that can catch these people on camera, eyewitness, all the evidence is here. But that's why I'm glad that this judge said, hell no, and hell no.
Hell no.
Queen, let me say this. In the case of Emmett Till, you had something better than video evidence, right? Mm-hmm. You had his uncle, Moses Wright, who did the absolutely unthinkable. And I hope, I haven't seen the documentary of which you're speaking, but I hope that they did justice to this man. Because what Moses Wright did when he went to the witness stand is what had never been seen in a Mississippi court, arguably probably in any court in the South. Moses Wright took the witness stand, being the uncle, and saying that these two men came and took his nephew from his house. He sat on the witness stand and pointed at these two white men and said, they were the ones that took my nephew. That had never been done in a Mississippi court, ever. And in spite of all of that, finding this body, all of these things, this all-white jury says, no, damn the evidence. They're okay.
Yep. And that's what shook me up, but that's what happens. It's like, it shook me up to see it, but I'm like, dang, that sounds like a story just from a few years ago. That sounds like a story today. That sounds like a story
Tamir Rice.
So
Eric
many.
Garner. Sandra Bland.
Walter Scott.
We're still moving through. Yes, all of these people. And we're still, like Trayvon Martin, a boy. And they want to, and I remember the first thing that one of these news stations says was, what was he doing? Why did he have a hoodie on? What did he have in his hand? But the person that killed him wasn't even police, wasn't even real official. Like, and that, it really frustrates me. But
what's that Jay-Z line?
They did do him justice, because that what you're accounting is what was shown. That's why the conversation is mostly being had about the series and how we're trying to make sure that we watch it, to make sure that we understand what happened. It's mostly happening from people of color. You know who's not watching it? White folks.
Oh,
they're not
watching
it at all.
Trust and believe, they're watching. They're watching.
I don't think they can get through it when they're presented with something that is telling them who they are or where they've come from. Because this didn't happen. This was 1955. This didn't happen too long ago. Right. Too far ago. And I feel like I just I see all the conversations happening. But even when I'm having a conversation, I'm almost presenting. I can have a conversation with somebody, and because I feel like they're coming off a little racist. And when we start having a conversation, maybe it's about Emmett Till. When I start presenting things to them that makes them feel like it's well, we don't really know what happened. what did he really do? Was he trying to rape the woman? Those are things that they start having conversations about. So they'll stop watching the series altogether because it's making them remember sometimes what their family lineage did or what people who look like them did. And are they truly an ally in that moment? Because I've been with people who say that they're allies and they can't even handle something like that. They can't handle it at all.
The truth is difficult to handle.
But Queen, I think the point that I'm making is, I agree with you that the masses, be them black masses, white masses, the masses are in a cloud of ignorance. And ignorance meaning simply that we don't know. The dangerous part, the dangerous individuals are those with the pen. See, because they know, trust and believe, those people who are behind the critical race theory, those people who are behind defending Confederate monuments and all that, they absolutely know the history. And because they know it so well, it is with that pen that they can slight one word that makes the whole story so much different. So that is where we must always remember, is that their storytellers absolutely know. So that's why to those who were the storytellers behind the Emmett Till situation, I take my hat off to you. And that's why we must be diligent in understanding our history so that we can now tell our story. Because trust and believe, if you leave it to others, they would tell you that January 6th was just a tour guide of the state capital, of this nation's capital.
And that's important that you say that. That's exactly the conversation that I had when I was speaking about the Emmett Till story on Twitter. I said, this only reminds me that what we do here is very important because we have to continue to take the narrative back, make sure it's clarified, make sure it's told through the mouths of the people who are experiencing it, through the actual people. It's our right, it's our duty, it's our due diligence to actually tell the stories that the media will cover up because of their ties to whoever. Well, our ties to getting the truth out to our black brothers, our black sisters who deserve justice. I mean, this is why we're doing it. Yes, and this is why we do what we do. This is why we are here and doing what we do. And I think that, through this time, this is, like you said, if we allow them to control the narrative, which they have, I would have never known of Emmett Till. You think they want to talk about that? You think they want to, because that. His mother, Mammy, was not considered. She wasn't in the ranks of, for us in Black history, in the ranks of Rosa Parks or any of them. She wasn't considered at the time a woman really of the movement. But when we look at the story, she was definitely a woman of the movement. Like you said, there was the first of their things that happened in this case was the first of its kind for Black people. Well, how she had to fight. How she let that casket be open for people to look at what is happening and what could happen to their Black children, but for the world to see how there's no justice. And I love that I got the opportunity to see it, to hear it, and to be able to continue to fight for like people like Ahmaud Arbery and his justice.
And Queen, when we think about Mamie Till. When she made that decision, and you have to imagine the torment of this mother when that casket came and she opened that casket and she saw her child, she made a very conscious decision that I want the whole world to see what these monsters did to my baby. Yeah. And that just, it brought so much attention. It's just like when the civil rights movement was going, and it was going across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. When white folks got to sit down in their homes and watch the evening news, and they're watching hoses and dogs being turned over on people, that woke up, that began to mess with the conscience of America. And again, when we pay attention to history, and I so give credit to our Black storytellers, those who told the story of the Exonerated Five. You go back to 1931, there was a case that was eerily similar to that. That case, according to Black Heritage Day 4, was the Scottsboro boys. Same situation. You got young men who were accused of raping a white woman, and one of the white girls stood went to court and said, "These boys never did what you claim they did." But trust and believe, what happened to the Scottsboro boys was absolutely identical to what happened with the Exonerated Five, or what most people would know as the Central Park Five.
Mm-hmm. I know we're coming up to the end of the hour, but these stories go beyond I mean, the Emmett Till story, those weren't police officers. They weren't deputized. They were just random white folks. Trayvon Martin killed by random, not deputized. Ahmaud Arbery, one guy was a retired police officer. But they're not. We're not just dealing with cops killing us anymore. We're presently in the present tense, dealing with people, white people who are able to get away with killing black people, and then because they seem like a good guy, or there's not even arrested. The case we're following here in Georgia, not even arrested. So it's not as though this is over, because it still happens.
And Ben, I want to try something, because I'm not sure, but to the Queen's point of us telling stories, I just want to try this. Hey Google, what happened on September 2nd in Black history?
Joseph Woodrow Hatchett was born on September 17, 1932.
Google, stop. So right now, when Google licensed the contents of my calendar, right? On September 2nd, I clearly have Emmett Till here.
Wow.
What Google decided to do was that in cases that appeared too horrific, they said, Carl, we don't want to tell that story. I'm not shitting you when I tell you this, that there were certain stories in our history that Google had me to find a new Black history piece of information. So what the fuck is the problem, Google? This is what happened in my history. You want to tell my history as though somehow it's so nice, it's so beautiful. But in the killing of Emmett Till, you want to tell me to go back and no, Carl, get me another day. I'm going to tell you another thing they did. And I hope you're watching, Google, because I don't give a flying fuck what you do. When you fuck with my history like that, I have no problem calling your monkey ass out. The same thing they did. You know who else that they told me to take out of history? You would not find her on this situation with Google. Angela Davis. They said Angela Davis was too controversial. Yes.
Really?
Yes. So see, this is what I'm saying to you, America. It is important. It is incumbent upon us to tell our story. And Google, trust and believe. If you want to come back and say, Mr. Mack, you done violated the terms of our agreement, we want to end our contract, fine, motherfucker, do what you need to do. But our story will be told. This is what has happened to us as a people in this country. And trust and believe, every day that we go through this calendar and we ask what happened on this day in Black history, and if it is a horrific story and they changed it, I'm going to tell you that they changed it. Like it or not.
Or not. All right.
Amen. And so, but
they censored. That's crazy, bro.
And Google, you need Dr. Mack on your team. But here,
you already don't want him not on your team.
But here's what Google is doing that white people are doing, right? Somebody just put it in the comment section, you know, with seeing that story, we understand why it would be hard for the white people to consume that, to be able to consume those kind of stories. We live them as Black people every day. And
every day.
Of them saying to us,
they said that in our chat.
They can handle that. No, but you have to understand, white folks really walk around here saying that's a little too much for me. That's a little too much. And that was 1955. But they're the same people saying slavery was so long ago. But this was 1955. 1955. That boy was a baby boy. And here we are trying to make sense of it for white people, but give it to them in remove some of the big facts, remove some of the gruesome details. Meanwhile, for many of us Black people, this is our life daily. We are reliving it. To hear the story of Ahmaud Arbery and just automatically go to 1955 and remember the story of Emmett Till. And then with how the justice system treats us, how police officers and investigators don't give the damn about the actually doing the investigation or treating the case as such. We see it with, thank you for reminding me in the chat, Jelani Day, which was the young man who was found in a lake. And there was nothing really that they could do about it. The investigation recently of a Black guy that went out with his coworkers, this was just last month, and was shot down. Like it was target practice.
And Rebecca, can I gotta include some of these sisters who are disappearing and are turning up dead, right? I don't exclude them. The white folks are getting away with murder, and it's happening in real time right now today.
Yeah.
And Ben, let me, since we're talking about justice delayed, here's June 12th. This is Medgar Evers. On June 7, 1963, Medgar Evers wrote this: "I love my children, I love my wife with all my heart, and I would die and die gladly if that would make a better life for them." 5 days later, on June 12, 1963, Byron D. LeBeckwith assassinated him. 31 years after his death, 73-year-old Beckwith was finally convicted of the murder of Medgar Evers. 31 years later, they knew what this cracker did. This is what America does. The same way with this case that we're talking about now, with Brother Sherrell. 3 years later, when you got a nurse telling you that I walked into the cell and I immediately knew that this man needed medical assistance. And now 3 years later, the FBI, you don't need no damn 3 years to figure this out. America, you don't need 3 years to figure out the bullshit that you're doing with us as a people. And this is why you take a man like me, who is a good conscience brother, and you turn me into an intellectual barbarian. You make me a thug like and want to burn this bitch down. And so be it, America, because this is the bullshit that you've done with us. And we're just simply saying, we don't need no water. Let this motherfucker burn.
Brother, who gave this man some weed this morning? Mac is on.
It's a lot.
Dr. Mac woke up and chose violence this morning, and I am with him.
Burn, mother.
He's like, you know what? It's February 1st. Boom, violence. Let's get it.
It violence all the way. But Ben, you said you didn't want to
damn about no Google contract. Come see me.
Don't run that back because we trying to work things out with that. But you know, but Carl Mack deserves to say that because there is no reason why anybody should say, "Hey, Carl, being you as a black man, we understand that. You know, you understand that. We know you're a historian, and a black historian at that, and you experienced that. But to let the Americans experience that." I don't know if that's the thing. So let's just continue with another isn't so bad. But Ben, I wanted to touch on what you said. You said we gotta, you didn't want to exclude our black women, which leads me into our next story because even in how I was saying the handling of how they did Emmett Till, how they handled Ahmaud Arbery, how they handled Trayvon Martin, how they handled Sandra Bland, how they handled Breonna Taylor. They don't handle any of the investigations right. Because why? A white police officer did it. A white man did it. Or, these white civil people in our community were just looking out, playing security. So they deserve. And listen, recently, and that was just what we're talking about throughout history from then and now. And we're most recently with Lauren Smith Fields, right? Who was the young lady in the Bumble case with the who went on the social media or who went on a date with what they were calling an older white man at the time and was found dead in her apartment, last seen with that same white man. But detectives, this is the update in that story. Detectives involved in the death case of Lauren Smith Fields are now suspended. 2 Bridgeport, Connecticut detectives involved in the case of Lauren Smith Fields, who was found dead in her apartment after a date last month, have been placed on administrative leave and are being investigated by the police department's internal affairs office. And this is according to the mayor. Disciplinary actions may also be taken against Bridgeport police detectives Kevin Cronin and Angel Lanos due to lack of sensitivity to the public and failure to follow police policy. In the handling of the 2 cases, there was another case as well with a black woman. They just kind of dismissed that case as well in the same city. Now, I don't know if we have any video on that, do we, David? Yep, if we do, okay, great. If we do, I just want you guys to take a listen in the developments on this case.
Major development in the investigation into the death of Lauren Smith Fields. This is a case we have been following on News Nation Prime for the last week. The mayor of Bridgeport, Connecticut tonight has suspended 2 police officers for mishandling the investigation into her death and also another case. We now know Lauren Smith Fields was not the only woman who died on December 12th, 2021. A 53-year-old woman, her name is Brenda Lee Rawls, was reportedly found dead at a home the same exact day, just miles away. While police and city officials are not saying the 2 cases are connected, there are some tragic similarities in how each of these cases was handled by authorities. Both families say they were never notified by police that something had happened to their loved one and that the deaths were not properly investigated. They have a lot of questions, and tonight they are demanding answers. And again, 2 officers on leave right now as the investigation into both of these cases continues.
I am extremely disappointed with the leadership of the Bridgeport Police Department and have found the actions taken up to this point with regards to these 2 investigations unacceptable.
Bridgeport Mayor Joe Ganim announcing 2 police detectives, Kevin Cronin and Angel Llanos, will be suspended for their handling of the deaths of Lauren Smith Fields and Brenda Rawls in what he calls a lack of sensitivity and failure to follow police policy.
It is an unacceptable failure if policies were not followed to the extent of this, and to this family and to friends and all who care about human decency.
When we asked about this guy, he was a nice guy. There is no need to investigate.
They're really disrespectful to people. It's almost like they treated us as if we were the criminals, like we did something. It's almost like we're being victimized over again, the way they treated us.
To lose your daughter, your only daughter, your baby girl, at such a ripe age of 23 years old, and to be treated the way we was treated by Bridgeport Police Station, the department is unacceptable.
Listen, I got to say something real quick, y'all. I got to say something. Listen, so long as America is doing black people like this, I don't care how offended people are about our language. I don't care how offended people are about the stories we choose. I don't care about how many, whatever. I don't care how many subscribers we lose. I don't care how much money we lose. So long as this empire disregards the humanity of black people, only person I care about is my mother. That's the only reason I ain't dropped the F-bomb right there, Brother Mac, but you got it from there. You understand? Like, because this is crazy. This is crazy that the people who are taking tax dollars out of black communities in the name of protecting and serving us are just saying nothing to the deaths of 2 black women underneath their jurisdiction. Don't ever I don't want to say, if anybody ever says anything to me about the language and the temperament of this show, y'all gonna meet a whole new Ben Dixon. Now that said, Rebecca, it's in your hands.
But Ben and Queen, please, just a point of personal privilege. Ben, just go back to the case that we talked about earlier with Brother Sherrell. The same situation. These law officers that dealt with these 2 black women, they did not see them as human. They didn't see nothing wrong. He was okay. These officials in Minnesota did not see what Brother Harold was going through. They didn't see him as human. So when you want to understand, I promise you, I want to sit down and I want to have an intellectual conversation with you. But if you want to understand the fury that burns inside of us, that fire within us, you must understand this is the dangerous part of me going inside of our history. And for a long time, I couldn't control this rage. And every now and again, America makes me want to pick that 2x4 up and take you to the white meat. But don't you dare ever question me. Don't ever question me about this fire that burns inside of me when you understand, until you understand what this country has done time and time and time again under the banner of democracy to us as citizens in this country who have helped build this country. You can never question what fury I have for you. And if you do, so be it.
Yeah, nobody can. I think if you just being black, you understand. You can choose to act like it won't affect you until it does, because no matter how mixed you are or light-skinned you are or whatever, it's going to affect you in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. No matter how black you are, unblack you are, no matter how Candace Owens you are, no matter how Jim Clyburn you are, no matter how
what's that man in New York? What's that punk ass man?
Eric Adams.
Eric bitch ass Adams.
Yeah,
the one that wants to bring back Stop and Frisk.
Will affect you in some way, shape, or form. It's gonna be knocking at your door. You have experienced it in some way, shape, or form. You choose to look the other way, to pacify, and that's what Google wanted you to do. And that's why it makes you so angry, because we don't want to pacify. We do not want to continue to keep our head down and not be able to look white folks in the eye and let them know, no, you did that shit. You did that. This is our history. And in order for us to move forward, America needs to hold itself accountable for what it's done. And we can't do that by removing things, because we've already been living that way. And we can't do that it took for me to go to my HBCU to actually learn, as I should, what was American history. And because they don't consider Black history American history, but it is. There was so much that happened right here historically that affected us. And, even with that, so many good things that Black people did. They didn't want that in history books either, because why? They've burned down a lot of our progress, right? Like whole communities that were built, in spite of them saying Black people can't live here, Black people can't do this. And Black people built for themselves. And what did America do? Burn those things down, kill a lot of people in plain sight, and move the hell on. And they don't want us to remember that either. Yes.
Just because y'all wanted to blame the Black man on something that they didn't even do. Rape a woman. Kiss, blow, make faces at a woman, make eyes at a woman, all kind of shit that y'all say that we did, and ended up none of this shit really happened. Y'all just wanted a reason to kill us. Let's be totally honest. Yeah. That's all it is. You just wanted a reason to kill us.
Yeah, and I would say a reason to kill us. I will absolutely say this. This has been one of my biggest challenges in delving into understanding our experience in this country, is that when you get inside of it and you internalize it, I mean, absolutely internalize it, it makes you hot as fish grease. And right now, my soul is on fire right now. On fire, Doc. On fire. It is literally on fire. And so, do I mean to dismiss every white person in America? No, I don't, because there are some folks who did not look like me, who were very much a part of our struggle and our success. But America as a whole, you have not owned up to it. And see, this level of conversation, family, that we're having now, this is what America is afraid of. This is what the governor of Virginia is afraid of, why he wants whistleblowers in the classroom. Because I want you to imagine that I was a history teacher in a Virginia classroom. Trust and believe. The whistle, it'd be a constant siren going off up in this
Blow the whistle. J-Lo siren.
Blow the whistle.
And when that whistle coming down, woo, woo, they
okay. Hey, James, they ain't gonna blow a whistle. They gonna blow a foghorn.
That's a locomotive about to run your monkey ass over.
Oh, God.
Goddamn Dr. Mac.
Brother Mac, Corey's there today.
Child, that's how I was going to say, Rebecca, with Dr. Mac getting there. Hell yeah.
It's true. He got a 2x4 by the desk. Listen.
Hell yeah.
Take people out to the woodshed. Take people out to the woodshed. Boy. Okay, I gotta see Brother Mac. I gotta see Brother Mac in a boardroom one day. I just want to see him a reenactment of you like slamming your hands on the table, your monkey ass. Keep this.
I mean, we see it right here.
Okay.
We've seen Dr. Mac unfold so much on this show in so many different ways. He'll go from being the Black elite in the room to the Black WWE coordinator.
Yo, Chippendale, the Black Chippendale, bro.
The Black Chippendale.
I promise you, I would tell you a true story. There was a brother who was my right hand in the NAACP, and the school system was messing with him on some monkey stuff. And they literally told him, yeah, we know you run with Carl Mack in NAACP, and if you want to bring him up here, bring him up.
Wow.
So I came up to the meeting, and I sat quietly in the meeting while several people discussed the situation that was going on. And because they was dancing around the issue, and the man who said, if you want to bring Carl Mack up, bring him up, he was sitting in the room. But now that I'm in the room, you could see the look on their face like, oh, shit, he's here. He's actually here. And so after I listened to all of them talk, I literally, to that point, Queen, I slammed my hand on the table and I drew a line. And I said, you see that line? You cross that line and touch him, because he belongs to me. And I will clear my entire schedule and make you my full priority if you should ever as much as look at him the wrong way again. And then I got up and I left the room, and everybody left the room. And so I called the brother when I got out of the meeting, and I told him, I said, tomorrow I want you to go to work, and except I don't want you to wear no underwear. He said, what do you mean you don't want me to wear no underwear? I said, so you can easily drop your pants and watch them kiss your black ass.
There's so much happening to unpack there. It's a lot. But yes, it gets intense.
God
but I'm happy
damn it, Dr. Mac.
I'm happy that he had you behind, right there on his side. We need more of that.
Brother Mac can start a story at 1.
I'm trying to make it nice community.
And it will get to 10 before he finishes his first
sentence. Somebody riding with us. But because it's honestly in these type of spaces, they're gonna try to scare you and make you feel like, even your own organization sometimes, and sometimes you gotta clear them. And there's somebody who's been around the block that understands, hey, that's your voice. Don't let nobody quiet you down for a little, for a couple of bucks or to pacify people. We're not doing that around here. We're not doing that around here. And that's what's very important. And I had to learn that, but when I worked alongside Benjamin Dixon in that jail. I'm just kidding. In that place that we were at.
The place that shut down during Black History Month.
Ben, are you talking? Because I can't hear a thing.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
He's still on.
I can't.
I think it's Rebecca.
Okay. Oh, it was me. Oh. I was running my mouth and I muted you guys.
Headphones we see.
Like the headphones you sent to Dwayne. Okay, never mind.
They wouldn't even see it underneath your hair.
Dwayne, I don't know. I feel like Dwayne did that. But anyways,
I was saying the company that shut down during Black History Month because we were too black.
That company because we were really black and we took over while they left us in there with no leadership. We took over. Ben started right there creating what he has now under them people's stuff, and we made it work every single day.
They left me there by myself. Like, what we supposed to do? No leadership. We leave.
And we did a Black History story every day. We took our 2 white producers and made them, hey, it's going to be blackity black today. Here we go. And they just let us do what we needed to do. We put them in order, and that was it.
And then they shut it down.
And then all of a sudden there was a meeting, and there was no longer
that thing.
Like it or not.
We just called it that thing. Yeah.
It was called Like It or Not.
We were told we were too BET, Brother Mac.
Wow.
I want to be clear. They pointed that towards Rebecca, and I guess they thought I was like some dollar store Brian Gumble or something.
They liked the way Ben
they thought I was going to go along with them and not my sister.
Yeah. And so they thought I was through VET. Imagine how I look right now. So, and I was going to the office. So, it's heels, head high. It's any
nails
kind of
done.
leave that I felt like wearing. Nails were incredible. But when I gave the news, I gave the news, right?
That's
at that time, everything was a bit scripted. I wrote my own stuff. I edited my own stuff. And I presented my own stuff. And then I just told them I want to do a Black story every single day. That made them a bit uncomfortable. I did not want to do Donald Trump singing the singing the what is it? The Pledge of Allegiance, missing some words. I didn't want to do that. It was cute. It was funny. It got the hits that it needed to get. But there is true Black issues happening in my community, and I am doing myself and my people a disservice from being able to have this platform with this large amount of people who are watching, who are not understanding what's happening in our community every single day.
That's right.
Right.
Black women are dying in the hospital all the time and having to save themselves by telling these doctors, listen, something is wrong with me. Don't look at me and tell me that, it's just, you can handle that pain, or you can, no, something is wrong with me. And daily we're having to save ourselves. I told them I needed to tell those stories, right? Because I was one of those women who were in the hospital who had to save myself. So these are the stories that need to be told. At that time, we're worried about Donald Trump singing the Pledge of Allegiance disrespectfully. Meanwhile, Colin Kaepernick is kneeling, right? And we aren't covering that. He's being blackballed, and we aren't covering that. That is problematic. So we took it upon ourselves to start creating those stories. And
they got hits, too. Here's the thing, Rebecca. And I gotta add this piece of context, and this is by no means to attack the former company that we're speaking of, and it's not the North Star, just to be sure, because I'm sure I hear, it's not we're talking about another company. And the reason it's important for us to bring this up is because this is the challenge that we had in trying to do what we're doing now, which is delivering the news, right, from a Black perspective, because there is an entire Black existence in this country that is completely disregarded, not only in terms of media, but hell, in terms of how we tell somebody we're sick in the hospital and they don't believe us, and then we die, right? So there's this big range of stories that have to be covered that actually 100% fit into the important stories of the day, of politics. Oh, okay, you want to talk about Donald Trump? Yes, but can we do more than just talk about it for clickbait? You can look at my channel, my YouTube channel. I got videos into the millions. You know why? Because I played the algorithm game. I knew if I talked about Donald Trump, I can make bank. But you know what, Rebecca? At a time, it was the same thing for me. Why am I going to continue to use this platform just to talk about Donald Trump and black folks getting killed the way we get killed? Couldn't do it.
And Queen, if you could, yesterday was a interesting story. So I want to just quickly say this. So given that we're coming up in the Super Bowl Sunday, it was important to me to tell this story in Black Heritage Day 4. So I want to just read to you the opening lines of this thing. It said, "Make no mistake about it, I was the most avid Dallas Cowboy fan in the universe. Then Colin took a knee because Black Lives Matter, and owner of the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, showed me what he wanted to do, and that is to make America great again. As a former Dallas fan, I despise the then Washington Redskins with their racist name. However, on this day in 1988, I swallowed my pride and cheered like never, well, almost like never before, for Washington. Wait, it was not for Washington. It was for the former Grambling University 1977 Heisman runner-up, Eddie Robinson molded quarterback Doug Williams. Yeah, that's what it was. So even as we come into Super Bowl Sunday, and you talk about giving up things, I'm telling you, I was an avid Dallas Cowboy fan. But when I heard Jerry Jones say what he said, oh, the boys on this team, they will stand, to your point about Colin taking a knee, Queen. At that point, I realized, why in the, Carl, how in the world could you be so in love with this team when the owner of this team is simply telling you, no, damn your culture, you're going to get out here and make me money at my, at your own expense, at the expense of denying your culture. So there are so many ways inside of us, so many daily examples that we're going to be tested as the way Judas was tested to betray Jesus. Judas took them 30 dirty pieces of silver. Dallas, I ain't taking you, Jerry. Google, you want out? Get out. Ghost out, player. Like it.
Hey, man, wait a minute. Hold on, bro. I'm trying to get, Google, that's Brother Mac. No, I'm joking.
Listen, no.
We with Brother Mac. Wherever he go, we going. So that's what it is.
Okay.
It's just what it is. Yeah.
Google, cut the check.
Hey, Google.
Hey, Google, cut the check. Let's stop.
But, see, I think this all ties into, because we have to get to another story before we leave. I know that Dwayne has to go, and I don't want to hold him, and he blame it on me, and then cut the mic in the morning and never let me on the show tomorrow. But I think it all ties down to this Black History Month. I think us, just our first day in talking about it, we are on another level of how we are going to be treated 365 or 66 days a year. When they try to diminish us, or when they try to make us small, and make sure that the story isn't told because, Alexa, stop. Nobody called you. Stop.
Yeah, I got the CIA agents in y'all house.
Or make it seem like we have to pacify or protect white people and their feelings. We're saying no this time. We are not continuously moving in a fashion where it's, okay, you know what, I need this job because, I'm not saying everybody do that because, some of us need
you might need your job.
But no, like yesterday in the room, they were having a conversation about COVID-19. They made sure to mute my mic. They made sure to not show me. When this is at my corporation. They made sure to not show me who else was in the room and that I wasn't able to chat. Now, mind you, when we were in office, any of those meetings that happened, like these roundtables, they knew Rebecca was coming. She was coming with notes. She was coming with numbers. She was coming with fervor to let them know, why it's not good for people to be in the building and who are the people who are getting hit the most. And there's Black people with COVID-19. And who works in this building the most? Black folks. I would have really took it there, but they didn't allow my mic to be open. But anyway, at the end of the day, email, will be sent. You're not going to stop me from using my voice, and you're not going to stop me from, telling the narrative the way it's supposed to be told. I don't need it puffed and filled with fluff. I need to know the story, because when I know the story, I'm able to understand that we're still dealing with it today. And in some areas, in most areas, for people who look like me and you, nothing has really changed. So, with that being said, I wanted to, because it's a lot of heaviness. It's a lot of heavy stories. It's a lot of heavy conversations. I know that in these times, especially for us dealing with this, we had to deal with, we had to deal with protests at the beginning of the year, watching a murder on camera, knee to the neck, going through the pandemic, not knowing what was going to happen to us, understanding that it was hitting our communities being the Black communities, just disproportionately, major ways than it was hitting the white community. Us having to not be around our parents, us losing family members, friends in this pandemic, us being alone. And a lot of people say, check on your strong friends. A lot of people say, check on your friends who you feel are doing so great. I think it's check on everybody. And this is the story following Chelsea Christ, who is the former Miss USA and actually a correspondent for Extra, who died by suicide on Sunday morning in New York. And I think that story shook a lot of us, because if you follow Chelsea Christ, you see her on Extra, you follow her on social media, and you don't see the pain. It's a lot of people out here who are dealing with depression or something eating them alive daily. And sometimes we look and we say, oh, well, their life is going good. What could they have possibly gone through? We don't know. But in this time, it's like, check on everybody, because you don't know what people are dealing with. Not only was it Chelsea Christ, we dealt with the mayor of Hyattsville, Maryland, who committed suicide just a few days before Chelsea's suicide. And then just before that was Regina King's.
Oh, looked like Rebecca.
I think we lost
Rebecca.
Okay, I thought it was me. I thought it was me that was lost, but she was talking about Regina King's son, who recently also died of suicide. And I was just putting into the chat, if someone can get us the suicide prevention number before we get out of here, Jane. You normally read it in these kind of circumstances. But while we give Rebecca some time to come back, I feel what she's saying. Today is particularly heavy. And some of it is because we take Mondays off right now and all the stories combine and collide on today. But just thinking about that sister at what some people would consider the height of her career, taking her life, you never know what people are going through.
Absolutely. And if you or anybody else you know that needs some help or is going through anything, please reach out. 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. And Brother Mac, I think we lost. Okay, Ben's still there too. I thought we lost Ben as well. But please, if you need any help or know someone that does, help is available 24/7. Reach out to you. Brothers, DM me. Do whatever you need to do.
Yeah. And brothers, one of the things that certainly has been taboo in our community is the understanding of the need for mental health.
Yes.
We as a people, if ever there's a group of people that is in need, like right now, I can tell you right now, I could use somebody to sit down and talk to. And the fact
Amen, Brother Mac.
To sit down and talk with you, brothers, and just release this pressure that is built up inside of me behind the things that have happened to our people or the things that we're going through. We as a people must understand that seeking mental health is one of the most precious things that we can do. We all need somebody to talk to, and we need to move away from standing in judgment of folks. And right now, the case in point that comes to mind right now is Antonio Brown, when we want to make fun of him and make these memes of him and this type of thing. You have no idea what is going on with that brother. And so it is important for us as a people to understand the need for mental health and to seek that level of service that can help us out. And so Brother DJ, Brother Ben, and Sister Zora, I thank you all so much for us having a platform. And for those who don't understand, I promise you, this is like, to the rest of the world, this is like putting you at a Black family reunion and letting you see the kind of shit we really talk about. that's on our hearts and minds about things. So we let you inside. Right. We just let you inside the family living room so you can unedited go at it.
That's right.
And then I say unedited, that's followed by like it or not.
Absolutely. Rebecca, we closed out some of what you're saying about our sister who took her life, and we shared the suicide prevention hotline.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ben. Well, I just had to say there's really nothing much to say. We're just going to end here. I hope that everybody who's gone through something, as I was sharing my story, but cut off, but y'all know my story because I told it a million times. You know, it's not only check on your strong friends. I know at a point in time that was the staple. It's not only check on your weak friends or the friends that's hurt. Check on everybody, especially in this particular time. Black folks is just feeling like we're forced to go through it. And I don't want to go through something that don't kill me but make me stronger. Sometimes it's not. People are just feeling like I can't move forward. But just continue to check on people, continue to love on people, and, you know, especially in the now. Depression is real, and it doesn't, for some people, when you go through depression once, you got to fight it every single day. And I know that's what I do. And I know that it's a process for a lot of people, but I love you guys so much. And I hope that we continue to make it every single day. I hope
we actually mean that. We actually mean it. When we say we love y'all, like we actually, know when some people are missing. We know when some listeners are at the patron parties. Like we really do, care about you all.
Never met y'all a day in my life. Like just Sunday, I met up with Bubba.
I do have a bone to pick though. Brother Mac, how you had Mama Gwen? Mama Gwen was at the patron party and you ain't even come, man. I was like,
you see how Ben did, Rebecca?
No, Ben, I want you to understand.
The whole ass talking about something relating.
Patreon.com.
Ben, shut the hell up. Shit.
I had to get a Patreon plug in there before we leave. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got like 5,000 of them in there already. Rebecca, continue.
Yeah, I just want to continue so we can go. But I forgot what I was saying, but I think it was something along the lines of, on Sunday, I got a chance to really kick it with Bubba and just have a one-on-one conversation and just love on each other and just hear him out for whatever he's going through and vice versa. And that's a moment for me. I feel like that's what I know, that we don't see each other and meet each other or whatever the case may be or are around each other. But I feel like if anybody needs me, I'm right here. And since you're right here, Bubba, I would like to, have more time spent with you. And just, it's all we have. We're all we have at this point. For me, I can say. And I absolutely love you guys. And I hope that you guys continue to fight each day. But make sure that you tap into your happy days, your happy moments, and you hone in on that too.
Do we have that video, David?
So love you guys. Mean it. We're at
the video from this weekend. Hold on, before we go, because I know it's an after party, but show the video. AP2, I think, is the one of James and Rebecca.
If the probably still there.
Yeah, okay. So we got a video. If nothing else, we'll share it on social media.
Oh, there we go.
That's me and Bubba.
Whose birthday is it?
That's Bubba. Wait a minute. Hold on. Back up. Now, I know I missed a lot of stuff. Whose birthday was it again?
Huh?
Bubba.
Oh, no.
It was your birthday?
We finessed them out of getting Bubba. I told Bubba I was going to celebrate him. And, I treated him to brunch. But I didn't get a chance to do that for his birthday. So we finessed him out of a free birthday.
That's how Black this show. Y'all can't stand.
Yeah. I mean, we met somebody cool. He was funny as hell.
I was about to feel bad. I thought I missed your birthday, James.
We met a white man that was being real sensitive, about Black folks and their issues, And
their issues. He went to the protest and everything.
They did not finesse some people out of the free birthday shot.
And next to us was who? Carrie Underwood. She was sitting right next to us.
Yes, Carrie Underwood.
Wait.
Like peripheral.
Peripheral.
Yeah. I live in the white rich, the white rich country.
Y'all.
I'm glad I didn't.
It was like maybe two black people that I saw the whole time, like when I was in like the whole outside area. Two. Just me and Rebecca. And I saw one other one.
Rebecca managed to find the anyway. Good. I got nothing. We'll talk about the rest of it off there.
So much. Yeah. Go and enjoy your life, and don't let that job stress you out. And if you ever need a break, if you ever need a moment, if you ever need to just DM, do that. Okay. Do that.
Yeah,
I'm
for
going to
real.
love on you. Because I want everybody to live. I want everybody to win. I want you to know that you have somebody in your corner. Days can get lonely, but you're not alone. I love you guys so much. We will see you on tomorrow, Wednesday, patreon.com/like it or not.
Like it or not. See y'all later.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much again. We didn't have Dwayne hostage around here. Dwayne, we sorry, brother, but I got you. You know I do. Anyway, y'all, love y'all, mean it. We will see y'all tomorrow on your affirmation for the day. I will invest in myself because I am worth it. I will invest in myself because I am worth it. Love y'all, mean it. We will see y'all tomorrow. Deuces.
Stay in this moment, just hold on, hold on. We back tonight, babe, tomorrow, let's go.